In this podcast, I'm joined by JJ Dukart and Brian Clary, and we answer the question, where are the bucks? We're entering that December month, and trail cameras could be a little slow, but we talk about strategies moving into the December month, how you can be successful during the late season, and answer the question again, where are the bucks?
The Deer Society podcast is brought to you by Illusion Hunting Systems, Onyx Hunt, Reveal Cellular Cameras, 10-Point Crossbows, Prime Archery, Loophole Optics, G5 Broadheads, Osseo Gear, Raw Frozen Scents, and HHA.
Well, to kick things off, we're mid-December, and the main question that's going around the office here is, where are the bucks? Where are they at?
It's a great question.
Hey, I'm dumbfounded by it too.
Well, it's one of those times, we're transitioning, and I feel like we are continuously talking about transitional phases throughout the season. We're kind of through the rut, getting through that post-rut stage, even though we're still kind of at the tail end of it here, early December. There's some second rut activity that may or may not happen, but we're getting into the late season stage here. It is super cold. I think it was 7 degrees real temperature when we came in this morning. We're getting into that late season phase. So the cameras have really been pretty slow for everybody. There's been a few bucks here and there. There's been a lot of pressure out there. Gun season here in Minnesota has lasted quite a while. JJ, I know where some of your bucks are.
They are at the taxidermists. A lot of guys are bringing them in. Some of the big ones actually got shot by some neighbors, which was actually a good thing. Some different neighbors or landowners and family and whatnot shot them. So it's good to share the wealth a little bit and see some success with other people. And, you can just see how happy they are shooting these awesome mature bucks and being part of the story with them, sharing intel or, whatever the case may be is awesome. So yeah, they don't always need to go up on our wall. So it's good to see them up on, we'll be on other people's walls in the future. So yeah, some really big bucks hit the ground this last week around that Thanksgiving time period. But yeah, like you said, transition into this late season, it's been slow, and that means most of the bucks are probably dead, or big bucks, I should say. Most of the big target bucks we're after are most likely dead or shot, but some of them are still out there, and they're just being real cautious. I think we've had 2 gun seasons now come and go. We're on our 3rd one in Minnesota, 2nd gun season in Wisconsin. So a lot of pressure, kind of hitting the tail end there. And, that's typically what we see this time of the year is you get a couple survivors and it's tough to kill them because they've been through the ringer, probably been shot at or smelled a human, been bumped, felt the pressure, definitely hearing gunshots. Like, they're educated. It's not their first year going through it either. They're typically 4, 5, 6 years old. So big smart bucks. They'll be transitioning to food, so there's still opportunity there on some cold fronts. If you have Osseo, you're in good shape. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
Very similar stories for me too. A lot of the neighbors putting a lot of these historical bucks that have been chasing in the last few years down over the gun seasons, but it's good to see it. One, it's really good to know what happens to these deer so they don't just disappear. And you're all, like JJ was saying, sharing the wealth with the neighbors, and they get everybody gets excited when you put down a mature buck. So happy for the guys that have put them down. I know that one of the ones that you and I were both after that was about a week before gun season. That was a heartbreaker, seeing that one not make it one more year, because he would have been a giant.
Yeah, for sure. He was a giant this year. I think that they scored him. He's 175. He really blew up from, 3 to 4. He was a mainframe 8-pointer with a split G2.
Yeah.
You guys filmed him in the summer, and then Lance found a shed off of him. And then, he showed up this year. Actually, the first picture I saw of him was on the neighbors there, and he had sent it to me, and he had blown up. He was a big 5x5. He had matching splits, huge swirly brow tines.
Little spiral brow tines are cool.
Cool buck. But yeah, I mean, that's part of the game.
That's part of the game, part of the chase. But there's still deer out there. There's a lot of, I haven't seen many bucks on camera. Most of my properties are green food sources right now. And I think they're really starting to transition from the picked ag into those green fields. I'm seeing more and more deer show up every day. But we're about to hit that switch where they get into that late season food pattern. And this is, yes, the deer are very smart. They've gone through the ringer, but this is also a really good time to pattern them. You can get really vast numbers of deer into your fields all at one time. Sometimes not helpful to have that many eyeballs, but good chance of seeing what you're going out after right now.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting time of year. It's kind of sounds like a depressed conversation right now.
Yeah.
But I think it's kind of a fun time of year too. This is a time of year that you do see big numbers of deer, especially here in Minnesota when it's cold and you're hunting over a food source. Lots of does coming out. I think you have to position yourself in an area where those large numbers of deer are. And if there's a big buck in the area, like you never know, he could show up there. I know it's happened lots at the Whitetail from Scratch property where a big buck will move in and boom, there he is. And with all these does and all these other deer, was filming, Jeff Altoff over in Wisconsin last night. And he was talking about the same thing, just, hunting a deer that he knows is there somewhere, doesn't have a lot of pictures, and they run a lot of cameras. Doesn't have a lot of recent pictures of him, in the last 5-6 days. That deer's there somewhere. And it's just being in those spots that are more high percentage with a lot of deer, because they're going to show up eventually. And when they do, if you're there, obviously you can capitalize on it. Now, the strategy part there is you have to be able to get in and out of those spots, because the more that you go in and hunt those spots, especially this time of year, and you're bumping those deer going out more than anything, can be detrimental to that area. So you got to be careful with those spots, but you can still shoot a big deer right now. I think, a lot of people are experiencing the same thing. I think these big bucks are they're laying low. They're being cautious right now. They're recovering from the rut, not spending a ton of time out, on their feet during daylight. But I think that'll change as things start to slow down a little bit, as the weather gets cooler. And I think everything's going to settle back in. I'm taking Allie tonight. We're going to hunt. And I don't know, I know there's still a few 5-year-olds that are running around. So, not saying that they're all dead or you can't kill a big buck this time of year. You can. It seems a little more difficult. And I think, one of the reasons it seems more difficult is just the camera thing, right? Like we're so used to getting intel and coming off of a couple phases that are just really, really good. The rut, post-rut, getting lots of pictures, seeing a lot of big deer. I think as that starts to slow, it makes sense why we're sitting here going, man, where are all the bucks?
Sure.
Especially if you got your cameras, which I do, still on those scrape areas next to the food, which is an awesome spot. They're still hitting scrapes, but a lot of times they're not avoiding the scrape, but they're more focused on the food, so you don't always get their picture. Whereas, through most of early November, a lot of November, if they're in that food source, they do check out that scrape. You get the picture, they're there. So, they are skirting cameras right now too, if that's where your cameras are still set up at. And it's also hard to get cameras set up on food to where you can capture all the movement, and actually get a good picture of a buck, because they could enter from so many different spots. And then a far picture on the camera, really, you can see the rack, but unless you request HD photo or really pull the card and watch the video, or it's tough. Like you can't really tell what the deer is when they're too far off on camera. So they're definitely out there and they're skirting cameras, for sure. We're still getting after it. Like you said, you're going out tonight. I think Chris will go out tonight. There's a pretty good one showing up at a spot that has daylighted a couple different evenings, on food. So that's brassicas. That's the prime time plot with the easy greens next to it. They're actually eating the clover and the easy greens quite a bit, like you said, Brian.
Right.
And then I'm assuming they're transitioning to that standing corn right next to it. So still bucks moving through there. Had some videos and pictures of some 3-year-olds that are in rough shape. One has a hole through its front leg, limping pretty good. Another one has a slight limp, no visible injury, but you can tell he's been fighting and chasing and wore down. And there's some bucks that have been running hard that are real thin looking. So they've been through the ringer, like we said, and they'll be getting on this food as much as possible. Really hitting the beans hard, trying to get that protein. Beans won't last very long. They can clear out a bean field very fast. But we do have a lot of corn, and corn holds them over a little bit too. So a lot of woody browse. I mean, they're still in the woods without the snow on the ground, getting acorns, munching on buds on the bushes and trees and stuff if they can access that. But yeah, laying low. There's not as much cover now. Like you mentioned, getting in, getting out. We got screens up by some of our plots and spots, and those are very thin, broken down. We've had heavy winds, a little bit of ice, a little bit of snow, rain. So screens are slowly deteriorating where they're not as effective. You can see through the timber very far right now if it's not thick. So that's a tough thing, especially when it's cold. Stands are getting a little bit more creaky, and you can hear that when it's dead calm, and maybe your blind's a little bit more creaky, or walking in's crispy. It's tough. If you got some wind speed that could help cover that, that's helpful. 5 to 10 is ideal wind speed. 40 like last night, not so much.
You got a 52 mile an hour gust here last night. That was ripping.
It is ripping.
And that's one thing. I was talking with my dad and brother last night, and I don't remember if I shot you guys a text or not. I thought about it, but it's like with all those winds yesterday and throughout the last overnight, this morning even windy, like they are going to move heavy tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They've been suppressed for over a day now.
Yeah.
With heavy winds, they're going to move hard tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, I think tonight could be a good night. I think it's one of those situations where, again, you got to get in one of those spots where, if you have standing food, great, be there, food plot, and get where those deer are. And, it's tough to do it this time of year, but getting in early can make a difference too. Like when we're getting pictures, a lot of deer. I was just out changing some batteries the other day and some cameras, and it was middle of the day. And I know you had the same kind of experience on yours. 1 o'clock in the afternoon, there's 5 deer on the food plot. They're using those things a lot. So if you can get in there and sit, stay warm, it does help to get in a little early. I was going to say something back to your point about deer being stressed and just being through fights and whatever else. 2 deer that I've taken pictures of or filmed in the last just couple weeks, both actually over in Wisconsin. Man, they had giant wounds on their neck, like on the back of their kind of bottom of their jaw. And then in their neck, one had 3 puncture wounds. Could tell it just took an antler right to, there's no way you would have made it. It was completely green and pussed and oozing and just wicked nasty. And then just the other day, I took photos of one that had one big puncture one, and it was right kind of in the back of his head, looked the same way. It's amazing these deer just take a beating, and I think so many times we wonder what happens to these bucks, like you find one dead or you don't see one again and you didn't hear of it getting shot. And there's so many things that they go through throughout the course of the year, whether it's, chasing too hard during the rut, or they take a time like that and they just, they get buried with infection and don't make it. But it was crazy to see just those 2 bucks kind of back to back, with those battle wounds on them. It makes sense why they kind of got to lay low, and sometimes they disappear because they take a beating out there for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's someone just my hunt breakdown coming up. Longhorn, a buck in Wisconsin last year that showed up late for food. He was in rough shape. Limping, two bad legs, real thin, barely any. We had a really mild winter last year, but I still don't know if he'd have made it, because that was tough. That springtime is really the worst for big deer. If you get a storm that rolls in, covers everything in the spring when they need it, early spring. But every year there's a deer at our property that, it's limping hard after the season. The one year, the buck we call 7-Up, broke his front leg in half and bone poked through, and he ended up carving out his side with the bone in his leg, and I'm sure he got infected. He made it through the spring, found his sheds, and never showed back up last year. There was a 3-year-old, we call him Limper, because they're all limping, and found his sheds, and me and the neighbors were all kind of wondering what happened to him this year. So they can make it pretty far into the season, but these winters up here, it's rough. So, not that it's an excuse to shoot a limping buck, but there's a 50-50 shot they're not making it through the winter from what we've seen lately. That's tough.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like that deer we call Lumpy that was on ours. That deer's 8 years old this year. He actually got hit this year. Again, that deer I think has been, man, poor deer has been hit, I think 2 or 3 different times. We called him Lumpy because when he was 3 years old, he had got shot, I believe, by a neighbor. He had a big lump on his shoulder, shot him right in the shoulder, and just that's how he got his name. And he's kind of looked the same every year, but super recognizable buck, and it's just been a legend. And he got hit again this year with a bow, hit high, and have not seen him show back up. Just made me think of that. That's one of those bucks that's normally around late season, and becomes pretty killable, I think. Got to be awesome if he just showed up again. Has been laying low here for a few weeks and show back up on a food source. But yeah, I think focus on food and be around big numbers of deer, and get into kind of late season tactics. Get your cameras out, get them in areas where you can try to monitor these big food sources. It's not easy, but try to get areas where deer are congregating or entering or exiting. A plow or kind of bottlenecks down. Aside from the hunting stuff, what else is going on? What's new in the world of Illusion and Deer Society?
Getting ready for trade show season. That's just around the corner. We're 4 weeks out now from the first one, and then that'll run through, almost till spring. So yeah, getting everything together, all the booths set and pre-mapped out. JJ can fill you in on some of the products that will be in the booths.
Yeah, so we got a big change coming up this year. We got the new, couple new variations of the extinguisher coming out. Those are really looking really good. And then the whole Skullmaster line with the DIY taxidermy, some new options, new branding, new packaging, like a lot of new changes there, some improvements to different products. I don't want to give away too much, but there's a couple items that are going to be really, really hot sellers that we're excited about. So that's those are the products that are DIY taxidermy type stuff. So turkey plaques, deer plaques, Skullmasters, shed mounting products, positioners. Yeah, just a lot of really cool stuff there. So we are excited about that.
Yeah, I can't believe it's going to be show season here before you know it. That's wild. But yeah, some cool new products coming. Obviously, you guys have been working hard on putting all that together, and it's amazing all the things that go into the behind the scenes of building these things, and improving them and developing new packaging and branding, and just the business side of it is cool. There's so much that goes into that. But working hard, some really cool new stuff coming, which is obviously exciting. As far as you guys go, you still have a tag, right? Are you going to be hunting anymore in the next coming weeks?
Yeah, kind of working with Chris a little bit. He still has a tag, and there's a buck that he has his eyes on. So kind of working with him mostly, try to get him on that buck. And then not that I'm the one hunting or helping too much, just providing some advice, and then looking for does for sure. So definitely doe patrol coming up.
Yep.
Always do that late season after the rut kind of fades out. Well, it's mostly about gun season. So we let the gun seasons pass for the most part. We still have muzzleloader going, but we just don't want to be in the woods, tracking a bunch of does and dragging deer out and gutting them when there's a lot of pressure, human pressure around the area. So we just kind of wait, and then we analyze how many deer in the area, and then start harvesting does. So going to be donating a few to the food bank. I know they're extremely low on food, so that's cool. And we're also obviously eating it ourselves too. So we do some of our own processing, and then we get some sticks and jerky and all the good stuff as well. So a couple different angles with those, which is pretty cool. Help other people out, donate venison, ground venison, and then we love to eat it too.
Absolutely. Clary?
Same thing. I do got my eye on one buck that he keeps showing up very infrequently, but he's there. Like you were saying with Jeff, the deer's there. It's just he hasn't been there, if that makes sense.
On camera.
Yeah. But I haven't seen him on hoof either. He's a newer buck, showed up midway through the rut. Don't have too much information on him. Don't really know where he even came from. Wasn't on any of the neighbor farms. But gonna give it a go at trying to at least see that deer on the hoof Can't really tell his age too well on cameras until you really see the deer. So, yeah, gonna be going after at least one specific buck, and who knows what shows up. It's late season. You get those green food sources, get that congregation, the community mentality of the deer herd, and really any deer in the area can show up. So, yeah, late part of December though, doe patrol heavy. We got to fill the freezers.
Yeah, for sure. We're gonna be doing some doe patrol too. We got too many does right now. We were just talking earlier. I went in to actually set a new blind on this food plot that we're gonna hunt tonight. It's an Illusion primetime plot, and it was it was originally fenced. We pulled the fence down, and the deer have just annihilated it. I was up there just the other day, and man, it hardly looks like there was a food plot ever there. I mean, there's been 20, maybe more deer in there every single day, and we're gonna go hunt it. There's deer still frequenting it, but man, it just looks like almost bare dirt at this point because they've just absolutely hammered it. So we're definitely going to shoot some does, and try to work on that population a little bit. Donate some meat to the food bank. I think that's super important. See what December brings. I still have a sneaky hunch that there's going to be some bucks that fall between now and the end of the year, and I still do have an Oklahoma tag in my pocket. I just remember that. So we'll see later on in December, even goes into January a little bit. And still a couple good bucks running around down there. So
yeah, we got team members knocking them down still. Kenny Jones sent me a message yesterday. I don't know if he shot one or not, so I'm waiting to see that. But it was a kind of a little sneak peek of a buck. So
nice.
There's a buck down there.
Riding shot one.
Donnie real close. Riding just smashed number 3 for the year. That was a big buck. Was that in Ohio? Maybe.
I don't know, to be honest. I think it was in Ohio, but I'm not positive.
Miles is down in Mexico, I think.
Yeah, I know he's posting some big bucks too.
And we got
story.
Late season Iowa muzzleloaders. Yep. Muzzleloader tags. Yeah, a lot of guys out there still cranking away. So another cool thing about this time of the year is it seems like if you do have a good property with a lot of preferred food and you keep it low pressure and your neighbors don't have that, it seems like those bucks can kind of shift in. You get some newer bucks, and then even if they're not shooters, it seems like those are the ones that they find your property, they recognize, oh, this is a pretty awesome spot, like great food,
like that
sanctuary. Then they'll come back next year a little bit earlier, so they kind of start using your property more. So that's what I'm seeing over in Wisconsin. A couple, mid-age bucks using the property more, like daily, since we have the good food. Which these are not bucks that were there in previous years or earlier in the season, but now they're there every day because we have what they want. So. Yeah, always never know if a big one shows up on food late season or if just bucks start to use your property, and that's something you can use for next year.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Yeah, we one of the farms that we hunt, or that we haven't even put any pressure on, what showed up there 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, mountain lion. Huh? Yeah, that's
Southern Minnesota.
That is a property, and that's going to be interesting here in the next month because I was just looking at a buck there that's been around there some this year, but he's been there more regular here just in the last week. And he's an older, mature buck. I think he's kind of a little busted up. Maybe just part of his G2's busted up. It just looks like an old 8-pointer. I think actually a great deer to shoot. So the big plot, one of our best plots that we planted this year is there. It's a primetime plot, and it's probably an 1.5 acres, and it's beautiful. And it's been good throughout the year, but it hasn't been great for deer activity. And this is a new farm, so we're just kind of learning it. And now finally, it's like there's a lot of deer moving in there. And I suspect that there's going to be something even better that moves in there here in the next month. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see because, again, it's a new property. Did have a mountain lion roll through there the other day, believe it or not. That was kind of crazy. And it was not a small kitty by any means.
It's a small kitty.
But I'm excited about that. I think that's a spot where we're going to shift some more cameras to and just watch it here for the next 25 days and see what happens, because I do think that the way that food plot is, I think it could pull some deer late season.
I think the way that farm sets up the terrain, where we suspect bedding is, and where the food source is, it's one of the better farms to sneak in on and have those late season huge encounters as far as numbers of deer. I think that that food plot is going to be getting pounded over the next, like you said, 25 days.
Yeah, what does it look like right now? Because I guess it'd be almost 2 months ago we took pictures there.
Yep.
That's been a long time, but the brassicas are the size of softballs.
Yeah.
And the tops were 2-3 feet tall. Like, what's that look like now?
Yeah, I mean, it's still, I wouldn't say it looks lush anymore. Those plants have really kind of shriveled, but it still looks great. That food plot compared to the one that we're going to potentially hunt tonight is, hands down, completely different look. One is bare dirt and the other one, it looks like there's a food plot there. So, we'll just see what happens. I got to get in there, put some more cameras in there and just kind of go sit it and see what's going on. Cause there are definitely a lot more deer hitting.
Yeah.
So, well, we're going to wrap it up here. We got to get some show stuff ready and then hit the woods. So guys, if you're listening, good luck out there. There's still some hope, but shift those tactics now into late season. Where are the bucks? They're going to show up eventually if they're there. So keep the faith. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Look out for some more hunt breakdowns coming. There's a couple good ones. 2 or 3 more to wrap up the year. Some really big hitters. So check those out. Look for some Art of Deer hunting coming up, and let us know. Send us pictures on social media. Would love to share them. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
The Deer Society podcast is brought to you by Illusion Hunting Systems, Onyx Hunt, Reveal Cellular Cameras, 10-Point Crossbows, Prime Archery, Loophole Optics, G5 Broadheads, Osseo Gear, Raw Frozen Scents, and HHA.